All right, welcome to Rugged Athlete Podcast. Good to have you back. We got a really cool episode today because we have a special guest, Brandon Schrom. So we've been talking with Brandon forever about getting him on. Justin, go over Brandon. Who are we talking to today? What's his background? What's he all about?
So I met Brandon on LinkedIn the same way that I met you, Austin. Big networking opportunity there for all of you who are on LinkedIn. But anyways, Brandon just is a passionate guy. He wants to serve everybody under the sun when it comes to first responders, super into wearable technology. He brings a really unique perspective. He's got a bachelor's and master's in exercise science. He's worked extensively in the wearable technology space, previously worked as a sport technologist for the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee, and he currently holds the position of research physiologist working with warfighters and enabling them to improve their readiness, resilience, and become more effective operators. So what Brandon and I have been doing is essentially taking all his lessons learned, all his expertise, and bringing it to a much needed space within wildland firefighting. So together, we formed the Type 1 Readiness Project through Hotshot Wellness, which essentially brings wildland firefighters the education and abilities to leverage wearable technologies on and off the fire line. So that's some of the stuff we're going to be getting in today of what wearable technologies are, how they operate, how they work, which ones do which things the best, as well as how these can be implemented on the fire line. What value do these have in the workspace? And what value does this have at home during your off season? So getting into a little bit of the tool side of things and overall just providing the education of how these can assist or improve your performance on the job.
Yeah, I think it's really cool, and some of the episode goes into a lot of these aspects. But I mean, just the fact that like we're able to talk with Brandon about all this stuff and get his opinion, get his personal opinion on the different types of. But like we really are talking to, I mean, a leading expert in wearable technology who works specifically with tactical athletes and warfighter human performance. So it's really cool to hear kind of like his perspective and his background and just like what he's used wearables for and just kind of his perspective on like the value that they can bring wildland firefighters, because he has some really, really cool stuff. And so, I mean, if there's anybody that's gonna teach us and teach the Rugged Athlete audience about wearables, like Brandon's the guy. So yeah, we'll get right into it. Hope you all enjoy.
All right, y'all. Welcome back to the Rugged Athlete Podcast. We have our first episode with our guest, Brandon Schrom, expert in wearable technologies. Brandon, it's great to have you here today.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks, Austin. Thanks, Justin, for having me on.
Yeah, this has been a vision that all three of us have had for a few months now. So stoked to see it come to fruition. This is a topic that we're going to dive deep onto a lot of things today. But first things first, we got to address the guest. Brandon, what got you into wearable technologies?
My background is in exercise science. I got my bachelor's and master's degree from SUNY Cortland in Cortland, New York. I'm an upstate New York boy. And after my graduate work, I went to work for Team USA as a sports technologist, interned with USA Cycling, and then moved into USA Track and Field. And during my time with USA Track and Field and the Paralympic teams, I started investigating, different wearables like Whoop. Like Whoop was like kind of like the big dog that was out during that time. And I think it was like 2018, and we were able to get some moves on some athletes and really started to have this whole conversation of like athlete monitoring. That was starting to become like a really big popular topic back then. And obviously, like after the 2020 and COVID-19 boom, like monitoring is in general became this like huge thing. Wearables have been a huge part of my career sort of ever since then, and and then also like my own personal side projects as well, both with myself and then also with Hotshot Wellness, which we'll get into later.
I was going to jump in real quick. First of all, I'm excited to talk about this conversation because I've got some similar experiences. Like, remember when Whoop was like, whoa, what the heck is this thing? This is cool.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to hear a little bit more about that. But I mean, I think like you gave some examples there, but like for the people that they hear the word wearables and they don't even know what we're even talking about, can you explain just like what are wearables? What's wearable technology, and like what are the common companies or examples of wearables that are kind of available now?
Yeah, so wearable technologies are just simply a wearable device that you can wear on your person. They typically come on their wrist, and they also come on the form of the finger. You have some more high tech wearables. They call them wearables, but like it'd be like mouth, like cortisol sensors in your mouth. You can get real granular with it. But for our context, wearable devices are some similar things like Oura Ring, Garmin, Apple Watch, Fitbit, Ready Band, those devices that are measuring heart rate, sleep, heart rate variability, and activity metrics. Polar as well. I don't want to forget them.
How do these wearables collect the data that they do? What are the different types of sensors that allow for this information to be collected?
Yeah, the major ones are going to be a triaxial accelerometer to measure motion, and then they have a PPG sensor. It's a light sensor, that's able to like penetrate the skin and detect and it goes over a blood vessel, and it detects essentially when like, every time a heartbeat
Is that what
happens.
this is? This little
Exactly.
green
Yeah,
light
the little
that's
the
showing
little
up.
green and red lights. Yep. Yeah, those are it. Some like the
I didn't
Oura
know. I
Ring,
didn't
for
know they had a
example.
fancy, crazy name.
Yeah, PPG sensor. And then some of the Oura Ring, I'm not privy to any of the other wearables. I'm sure there might be some now, but Oura has an actual temperature sensor that's embedded in it as well, so it can get skin temperature. But like those are like the three main types of sensors that you'll see in any of these off the shelf wearables. And it is to note too, like again, you've got all these different wearables. They all do something different, but they all have the same technology. They all have pretty much the same PPG sensor, the same accelerometers. They might differ a little bit, but like the technology is pretty similar across the board in terms of like all of these like major wearables that are on the market that you can get.
Are there certain devices or brands that do things better than the other?
They all, yeah. So they all do something a little bit better than the other. Or you have like your jack of all trades one, and this is my personal opinion. Aura, or the Oura Ring. Like I've got one on right now. I think Oura is really great at just overall health and wellness as well as women's health. And they are the gold standard when it comes to like actual sleep tracking. They've been, and when I say, but they're the closest to gold standard, which is a polysonography, which is we actually go into a lab and get, an actual brain scan done and actually do like a full on sleep test. They're the closest as well, but like they're leading the charge in terms of women's health and being able to do cycle detection and fertility detection, and illness detection. So they're really great, but they lack in activity tracking compared to some others. Whereas Garmin started off as a GPS company. So their activity tracking is pretty top notch. Same thing with Polar. Polar was a heart rate company. So their heart rate detection is off the charts, but they might lack a little bit in the sleep department. Fitbit is kind of an all around, like they kind of do everything pretty well. And then you got your Apple Watch and the Android. Android's got one too, I think, their own version of the Apple Watch, but those are more user interface friendly. Essentially, it's just your phone on your wrist. So that's where they benefit. So yeah, they all do something better or worse or similar to one another. And where all that differs is in the algorithm. It's all under the hood of what these companies develop in terms of how they make these and predict these metrics.
I was going to ask about, you mentioned Whoop a second ago. What
Whoop, yeah.
what are some of the things that Whoop does good, and like where, and in your opinion, where to Whoop specifically, like where does it maybe fall short?
Yeah, so Whoop is really good at activity tracking and training stimulus, right? That strain score is really accurate. I would say Whoop is really wonderful for like high-end athletes that are really trying to like push their performance to the limit, which is why we see a lot of professional athletes utilize them. Again, I think it's not even a pitfall because like they do their sleep and recovery metrics pretty well too. But I think that's probably their limiter, especially when it comes to maybe like the illness detection side of the house, like the overall health and wellness side is where they fall. But like Whoop's main area is performance. So that's where they lie and that's where they sit in, versus you got a company like Oura who sits in more of like the health and wellness space.
Yeah, I think it's cool to hear, some of these wearables, kind of are a little bit better in certain situations than others. Because I think that helps, like, if someone's listening to this episode, they're like, okay, which one is good for me? Or like, which one should I look into?
Yeah.
So hopefully that helps kind of answer some of those questions. But while you were talking, I thought about another one, like how accurate are these wearables? Like realistically, if something is just on your wrist, or you mentioned fingertips or something like that, like how accurate is this data?
They're pretty accurate. All the individual metrics that these wearables collect, a lot of them are externally validated through other research institutions, right? Outside of their own company. Like I said, with Aura's pretty gosh darn accurate when it comes to sleep metrics. Like they've got that dialed. When Oura tells you that you slept 7 hours and 35 minutes, it's probably going to be down to the minute. As terms of like how accurate that is. I mean, and they're even starting to work towards like sleep staging. Like they're able to detect like pretty close how much light, deep, and REM sleep you got. Heart rate variability is pretty accurate. They all do the overnight HRV testing. which eliminates as much noise as possible. So that's pretty accurate. It's where you get into when all these wearables, right? Like you get into the algorithmic side, like the readiness score, the strain score, the body battery. That's where a lot of those differ. And the quote unquote like accuracy tends to decline a little bit. And it's only because it's just a score out of 0 to 100 telling you how you're supposed to feel. And it's because you have all of these different metrics that are all coming into play within that particular score, where you're going to see some variation, and then you can utilize that score, to help you track trends. And that's when we can talk about that later too, as the person, how I use it. But I would say for the most part, man, these wearables they're getting pretty dialed in.
I don't have a question, but I've got a comment real quick, and it's my only gripe with Garmin is you mentioned the score 0 to 100. I need someone from Garmin to explain to me why the body battery goes down to 5 and not 0. Why is 0 not the lowest score?
I wonder if 0. I wonder
so much.
It would annoy me too. My whole thing would be like, oh man, is it just because like 0 means you're like actually dead? Like
Dude,
you have a pulse still, so technically your battery's not 0.
There has to be some reason, because like it just doesn't feel right. It should be 0. And,
Are you trying to actively push yourself to 0? Is that why you just haven't been able to work out hard enough to get a 0?
So I'll share a quick story. I mean, shoot, and however many years I've had a Garmin, I've hit 5 on my body battery plenty of times. But there's one instance in particular, and I have got a screenshot of it, and I use this screenshot in like presentations and stuff sometimes. But it was from when we were on this was a couple years ago. We were on an assignment up in Idaho, and the screenshot is like I think 7, like a full week's worth of body batteries, and you can see the low score on all 7 days is 5. And couple things. It's like, one, like this, this job is clearly, it's just going to drain your body battery. When you're working these shifts every single day, that's just like the norm that you're living in is your body battery's at 0 essentially. But it just looks funny because it's like 5, just 5, 5, 5 all the way down. And I'm like, this should be 0. Like I'm clipped. Like this just looks wrong.
Yeah.
And I think
that would trip me up too.
I'm kind of going off of like this where this conversation's heading, but this is I think important that I think at some point we should touch on, and maybe we were going to touch on it and I'm just jumping the gun, but it's part of this whole conversation. I think of like when I'm seeing my body batteries at 0 and I still have to wake up and clock in and do my job. Like, I'm not going to show my squad leader my phone and be like, look, I'm at a 5 today. So like, I don't know if I can run saw, or I don't know if I can do this or do that. So like, obviously I'm not even saying that as pushback, but I know that there is someone out there that's going to be wearables are stupid. Cause like, it doesn't matter. I'm still going to do this or I'm still going to do that. So where is the value? Or like, what would you say to that person that's like pushing back against the value in wearables just from that sake? All right, we got to take a break real quick because I need to tell you about today's sponsor, which is Ready Bar. Ready Bar is a meal replacement bar. It's an energy bar. It's a protein bar. So many different things in one. I was fortunate enough to try Ready Bar way back in the day before it was even an official product. I got to sample like the beta product and I thought it was awesome. Kept in touch with Ryan, the founder, and I'm super pumped to be able to partner with Ready Bar because I think it's a really good product, and I think it's a perfect product for wildland firefighters. They've got 4 different flavors. They got the OG, which is PB&J. They got oatmeal cream. That one's probably my favorite, if I'm being honest. Espresso mocha and chocolate peanut caramel. The macros on these things are legit. 500 calories, 74 grams of carbs. So you're getting a ton of energy, and only 13 of those are coming from sugar. So a lot of that's coming from like oats and more complex carb sources. So you're getting solid carbs. Also 15 grams of fiber, which is massive, especially with how few fiber-rich foods exist in our sack lunches and on fire incidents and things like that. So 74 grams of carbs, 14 grams of fat, 25 grams of protein, because we all know it's hard to get protein out on the Fireline. You're also getting a lot of electrolytes, 500 milligrams of sodium, 510 and 410 milligrams of potassium, 130 milligrams of calcium. You're getting more electrolytes in this bar than you're getting in a lot of other electrolyte hydration supplements. Can't recommend this product enough. You can also get a 20% discount through GovX, and this goes for all military, first responders, firefighters, things like that. You just got to use your GovX account if you got one of those. Can't recommend that enough. Go support the people that support Rugged Athlete. Check them out at getreadybar.com. All right, let's get back to the episode.
Yeah, man, that's a great question. So these wearables are not a decision maker, right? Like we're not having these things tell us what we should and should not do every single day. And how I utilize, well, it kind of uses a use case, and I'll kind of use my own personal experience on this, is when you look at your readiness score for the day, right? And it's like, okay, let's just say my readiness score is a 60. It doesn't mean that I can't get up today and get after it and go perform my job. What it simply means though, is that like look at that score today, and then I can go into a deep dive and look at, okay, what were the factors that are contributing to that particular score? Is it my just genuine lack of sleep? Like there's times where I'm like, I'm not able to get enough sleep, but like it's from light factors or whatever. And we can even use the example of you guys out on the Fireline. Yeah, by day, I'd probably say by day 3, readiness scores are probably dipping, like in towards the red. It's the nature of the job. It's you have extreme workload and you have minimal time to rest and recover between. Like we expect this to happen, but what we do is you use it for context of like, okay, hey, I'm starting to decline. Oh, it's my sleep. Okay, how many hours are you given to sleep? I don't know. We're given 8 hours to rest. All right. Well, how many of those 8 hours did you actually spend sleeping? Were you on your phone the whole time for several hours, like just doom scrolling?
Yep.
Did you eat something spicy in the chow line? You know what I mean? Like or are you stressing about something out externally off the Fireline? Or are you having family issues? Like whether that's marital issues, a sick parent, a sick child, like what's going on? And like, is that keeping you awake? Like these are all context clues that you can utilize within that readiness score. That's what I would tell them. It's like, don't use it to dictate your life. We have to perform. And in fact, athletes, tactical athletes, everybody performs on minimal sleep and minimal recovery. When you're asked to perform, we typically perform. It's just using it as a trend analysis and looking at like different factors and how they affect that over time. I think that's like the key. And like, that's where the real true value is when it comes to that.
So we're going to get into a lot of things that build off that concept of decision-making and the philosophical end of where these sit. But maybe for folks who aren't as familiar, or at least don't necessarily understand the concept of why my body battery is saying 5, why my strain score is what it is, maybe we can dive into a few of those metrics that yield that composite score that dictates or doesn't dictate your life. But let's get into a few that are probably the most consequential, with the first being HRV. Brandon, can you give us a good explanation of how HRV yields these composite scores or plays a role in them at least?
Yeah, totally. I'll start with like what HRV is, right? So it's a sexy word that's out there, and that's out there in the wearable world, human performance world. So HRV is heart rate variability. All it is, it assesses like what the different time points are between every heartbeat, which is called an interbeat interval, and then it's looking at, and it's a statistical value. A typical way you measure it is it's the standard deviation of the means of every single heartbeat. So that's what it is. You can calculate that, and then it calculates it into milliseconds. The big thing with HRV and like what it kind of is showing, at least with that particular metric, you can get into the weeds on frequency analyses and whatnot, but it's giving you a balance between your parasympathetic, which is like your down regulation mode for your nervous system, and then compared to your autonomic nervous system, which is your fight or flight. So it's the parasympathetic. Oh, sorry, not autonomic. Sorry, it's parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system, that fight or flight response, and it's giving you a balance between those two. So when you have a decent HRV or a high HRV, that just means that your body's able to go between this fight or flight response of like, hey, I can perform, and then I can immediately come back down and get back to baseline in order to recover. And it's the balance between those two. The lower it is, the harder it is to be able to get out of either that sympathetic or parasympathetic nervous response of, hey, I'm up here, I'm stressed out, cortisol's through the roof, I'm busting my ass constantly, I can't get out of it, so my body is elevated in the state and I can't get down to recover. Or same thing, I'm depressed, I have severe anxiety, I can't get out of this parasympathetic system and get back to baseline either to be able to perform. And it's a balance between those two. So HRV has a major player when it comes to those composite scores. Again, nobody knows how much it's actually weighted because the companies kind of keep that under the hood. But we do see, I mean, like at least from my end, like my own personal experience, my HRV plays a gigantic role in my overall composite score, my readiness score on Oura.
So you have something, Austin?
Yeah, I was just going to say, so I've pulled up my Garmin stats. My HRV is 42 today, 7-day average. Well, it's 43. Is that good or bad?
So that's really funny. So I don't know is the correct answer there. It's because HRV is so independent. It's so tailored to you. So like Austin's HRV is way different than Justin's HRV, way different than mine. There's no standard. Like when we have when we look at like VO2 max, like there's a gold standard VO2 max. Like you look at like a Lance Armstrong is got what? Didn't he have like a 78 VO2 or something stupid?
Pre-doping.
Like pre-doping. It's the same, but like a high aerobic athlete's like that's a gold standard VO2. Like you have a standard set. Like the average what in a male is 45. Like that's the typical. HRV doesn't work like that. It's all individual. It's very individual and it's very tailored to every single individual. So Austin, what you were saying was when you said you look at your 7-day average, that's what you compare it to, and you go, okay, hey, this is like my average. Mine typically runs around 45. Like that's my average. And across the board, and I look at it, and then Oura flags that for you. So Oura doesn't tell you like, oh, you're at a certain threshold. It's, hey, how many standard deviations are you away from your average? And if it's below certain, like I think it's 2 standard deviations below your average, Oura flags that as a, as a risk factor for illness or something that's going on. Same thing. If you're going above, like that really significantly positively impacts your readiness score. And so like, hey, you're ready to go. Your HRV is solid. So it's very much tailored to you. And the more you wear these wearables, the more data it has to create an average and create a baseline for you. And then in turn makes HRV more accurate.
So I find this misconception happens fairly often. When an individual sees a large physical stress, that can decrease HRV. If you undergo a 4,000 calorie expenditure in a shift, you're dying, you're energy deprived. That can certainly drop it acutely, but what are the other factors outside of physical exertion that can also affect HRV?
Yeah, any life stressor, really. Alcohol consumption's huge. You can see that. I mean, like you can do a little self-experiment with yourself at night, like have a glass of bourbon right before you go to bed and watch your HRV tank the next morning. Like it's pretty big. That affects HRV incredibly. Illness, and that's why HRV is such a great like detector for illness. Your body's immune response definitely decreases it. Poor diet, I'm just eating before bed, that decreases your HRV. And then also again, the stressors at home. Are you fighting with your spouse over and over and over again, night after night after night? Are your kids sick? Are your family members sick? Are you fighting with a parent? All of those factors decrease HRV. And it's the human stress response, right? Our bodies view stressors the same exact way. Like yelling at somebody in traffic is the same physiological stress response as like getting into it with a bear, like in the middle of nowhere. Like it's our bodies view it the same and it has the same toll on our physiology and it's reflected in nature.
I'm glad you brought up alcohol because when I had Whoop years ago, that was the biggest takeaway with my time using Whoop over anything by far was just like how much one beer impacted all these things that like, I can't see, they're below the surface, but just seeing how much it would tank everything. And like for me, I mean, I don't feel any different, like it's just one beer. That's not going to do anything.
Yeah.
But seeing like how much it changed everything that I couldn't see, it did help change some of my behaviors of just like, if I've got for example, this is really how I used it. If I was training for a race or something and I had a long run scheduled Saturday morning, then instead of having one beer Friday night before my run, I would just have it Saturday night and still just having one beer, but little things just to help that Saturday run go a little bit better was a big change.
Yeah. Same with me. I mean, like having the Oura Ring. I remember actually when I first got the Whoop, I tried the Whoop out back in 2019 when I was still with Team USA. And I remember it asked me questions at the very end, like, how many drinks of alcohol did you have 2 hours before bed? And I was like, wow, that's personal. Okay. Do you sleep with anybody in your bed? Like, are you sharing a bed with anybody? And I'm like, hey, okay. All right, you're attacking me and that's fine. But all those factors like affect it. And like, that was like my first like true bit with it. And then I started working with Oura. And again, Oura is the same thing. Like you can use it. And that's what I love about these things, is that you can kind of treat yourself as your own like research participant. And you can like objectively see what is happening with your physiology just by changing one little thing. Like I did that. Again, like at nighttime, my wife and I both love to like watch our shows together, whether it's cooking or true crime or whatever. And normally I would like to have a drink right before bed while we're doing it. There's like a nice small glass of bourbon or an old fashioned or something. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to cut those out and I'm going to see what my physiology looks like. And lo and behold, after 2 weeks, not only am I seeing the increase in the data, but then I can start looking at like my training data and go, oh, wow, that mountain bike ride actually went to like, this is a good 2 week block of training. And it was because I was able to recover. And I just made one tiny change. I just removed one drink like out, and it was something so minuscule and it had such great dividends, and I wouldn't have necessarily had that if I didn't have the data to like really back it up. Because as you said, it's like, oh, I don't really notice the difference, it's one drink. Like, is that really making a difference? And internally it 100% is.
So this is a good segue now that we're starting with how you experiment with it, how Brandon Schrom utilizes the wearables. How has this impacted your athletic performance, your endeavors, your training? What are some ways that you leverage your wearable for your own purpose, other than that example you just gave of the drinking at night?
Yeah. So I'm a little fun fact about me. I'm a severe hemophiliac, which means my blood doesn't clot. It's a genetic disorder that I was born with. So my wearable is actually able to pick up whenever I have the onset of like an internal bleed. So I'm not a traditional hemophiliac by no means. Most hemophiliacs, we're kind of taught to kind of like live in a bubble, don't really do a lot of physical activity. My parents raised me to not be that way. I lift weights, I mountain bike, I do all the things that hemophiliacs probably shouldn't do, at least to the medical community. But like, so having a wearable, like I can actually see like in my HRV, hey, my skin temp's not going up. All right, cool. So that's probably not an indication of illness. My HRV is tanking. Okay, hey, yeah, I'm starting to feel a little bit of tightness, like either in my shoulder or in my leg. And I've actually utilized that to say, okay, all right, cool. I'm going to take more of my medication that I have to intravenously inject. And I kind of use it as like as a tool for treatment. And that helps me stay on top of a training regimen because now I'm not hurt as much. I can mountain bike safely. Let's not talk about the fact that I crashed on Saturday, gentlemen. But I'm able to like train more effectively, and it just keeps me healthier longer, and I'm able to stay fit more days out of the year because I don't have as much downtime.
Just anecdotally, I have to bring up the fact that Brandon and I went out to my old crew a couple months ago to give a wearable lecture, and Brandon, whether it was a combination, it probably was, of naivety and just your personality of I'm not gonna take no for an answer. There's no way I'm gonna not accept this challenge. We did our crew hike, and I don't think Brandon regularly hikes with packs, and this was the first glimpse he's gotten of being on something that wasn't a trail. This is not like a trail that was made. It's just a cut.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
with like one working foot in like 90-degree heat with what was like 30-pound pack, dude, Brandon like one-legged his way up MF, the crew hike. It's like 750 feet of gain in like 0.3 miles. Fucking gnarliest thing I've ever seen in my life. I was like, dude, his wife's gonna kill me. Like, I'm gonna get like a good.
My old man was happy. My old man was grateful for you. It made me work.
Dude, gnarly. Just
That was
like
awesome.
pure grit. Like point 1 miles in, I saw it in your face. Like, dude, this is gonna be like a nice hour of pain cage for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was literally one of the hardest physical things I have ever done in my entire life. And I got up and I'm like, I can't quit. I can't go down. There's no. We're going up, and we're going to, even if we got to get on hands and knees, which we did, or at least I did at the very top there, but we got up.
But that incident alone made me realize, like, dude, this guy wants to serve something. Like, he's got a fire in him, and I wanted to talk about that in the podcast a little bit. Of you serve first responders, you serve public servants. What made you have that desire? Where did that origin come from of wanting to serve those who serve?
Yeah. So when I was a kid, I was in a lot of junior military programs growing up. I was in the U.S. Navy Sea Cadets for a good portion of my life. My grandfather and grandmother were heavily involved in the local unit in our hometown. So was my older cousin. And I just thought it was really cool. I watched Top Gun for the very first time when I was like 9. I'm still 100% obsessed with that movie. My cats are literally named like Maverick and Goose. They're brothers. So there's a total obsession with that movie. Yeah. And I wanted to be Maverick. I wanted to be a fighter pilot. And then I got into swimming. I was a big water kid. So I'm like, oh, I'll be a rescue swimmer or do something like that, or a helicopter pilot. But I wanted to be in the military. When I was in my Sea Cadet unit, they were told that, or I was told that I couldn't go to any like summer trainings. I wasn't able to go to any sort of like boot camp that those cadets offered. And my grandfather, rest in peace, Papa, but he he went down to Washington and like defended my case and was like, this kid needs to be involved. He should be. And I was able to go. I was able to go to the summer trainings, and because of him, so I was able to pursue that love. I got into JROTC in high school. Had a great time there with the Marine Corps JROTC unit. Again, sole goal with being in the military, wanted to serve my country. And then getting the unfortunate news from every recruiter saying that hemophilia is a disqualification from service. Just completely gutted because I'm like, that was literally the only thing I ever wanted to do. But so again, did the traditional college route, did undergrad, did grad school. And, my career that I have now is I was able to, after Team USA, was able to make it. And now I'm a research human performance scientist for Warfighter Performance with the Navy out here in San Diego. So I've been doing that for 6 years, and I couldn't serve, but I can serve those who do. And I got pretty damn close to my childhood dream, and that's what makes me so passionate about the job that I currently do, as well as like the nonprofit stuff with Hotshot Wellness and being able to serve our first responders.
Yeah, man. Thanks for sharing that background. I think that's crucial info for individuals in this field to kind of understand. And I think it bridges the gap a little bit, which will happen later in the conversation, between what you do now with warfighters and what we're attempting to bring to the field of wildland firefighting. But we'll stick to the former for this next part of the conversation. What does it look like with your work with warfighters and wearable technology? What does that relationship look like with you and them? Where does the intervention happen? What is the ins and outs of the goals of what your work does with them?
Yeah. So I can't go into the details of like what I'm currently doing right now, just because it's all under the hood. But I can talk about what wearables have been doing in the military. So wearables really came out in the military after COVID. COVID kind of sparked again. It kind of just like made the whole boom, right, of wearables in general. And what happened was it was during COVID-19. I don't know if you guys remember some of a couple of the aircraft carriers that were stuck off the coastline and had the huge COVID outbreaks, and the carriers weren't able to get to port. I don't know if you guys heard that in the news at all.
Mhm.
Yeah. So there was a huge need, right, for having some sort of a monitoring device to be able to like detect COVID-19 early. And Oura was the first wearable to do that, really. They had during the NBA finals during COVID, and they had the whole like playoff bubble. Every player was issued an Oura Ring, and they were utilizing Oura's algorithm to do illness detection, and they were able to detect players that got sick and get them away from other players before the onset of symptoms even occurred. And the NBA playoffs were able to go off. I mean, I'm not privy to, what the infection rate was or the accuracy or whatever, but like it was a big deal back then. And the Navy, and again, this is not my any opinion. Like this is my opinion alone, not opinion of the DoD. But the Navy saw that and it was really powerful. So that kind of like that's how it got in the door, and then it became more of a performance and fatigue monitoring system after that. To no surprise, I know the wildland fire community is very sleep deprived, and so is the military. And the military knows it's like, okay, cool, we know we have a sleep problem. Like, let's quantify it. Let's see what's going on. And there's a lot of mishaps that are related to fatigue out there that are public knowledge. You can look up. There was a destroyer that, I believe they ran into a cargo ship at night. Again, fatigue was the cause of that. A couple of these fighter jets that have went down in recent years, like fatigue related. So fatigue is a big deal. And it's not necessarily a go, no go in terms of like, hey, if you're fatigued, you're going to make a mistake, but it can exacerbate an issue. And that's where wearables have kind of been able to step in. We've been able to like really quantify like, hey, this is a problem, or hey, this is something that we should address or take into consideration when we're doing our manning situations, when we're doing tactical planning, like being able to utilize and leverage these things to actually quantify what's happening with our warfighters rather than just going off of straight intuition.
All right, got to take a quick break because I need to tell you about the Rugged Athlete Pro membership. Pro membership is our all-access subscription through the Rugged Athlete app. In the Pro membership, you'll get access to all of our season-specific periodized strength and conditioning programs. Right now, we're in the middle of our in-season training block, but you also have access to our preseason training block, our off-season training block, and our postseason as well. In addition to those programs, you also get our 4-week on-ramp program, which is great for beginners or if you're coming back from injury or something like that. You'll also get access to all of our micro PT plans, which are push-up specific, pull-up specific, and mile and a half specific. So if you need to improve kind of one of those aspects, you can layer that program on top of the other program that you're doing. In addition to all the training programs, you also get access to all of the high-level educational courses through Rugged Athlete EDU. So that includes our high-performance hiking course, our physical preventative maintenance course, which is all about injury prevention and staying healthy throughout the fire season and throughout your off-season training, and then also our work capacity development mini course. The Rugged Athlete app also features things like a built-in meal tracker. It syncs to your Garmin or Apple Health Kit account. So all the stuff you do on your smartwatch will automatically sync and upload into the app. And you can try it out today for free with a 7-day trial. Just head over to ruggedathletetraining.com/app and you can sign up today. All right, let's get back to the show. I want to get back to just this whole idea of how wearables are practical and valuable for firefighters. Because it's one of the biggest things I want to get from this episode. But I want to just kind of talk about something I've observed, kind of going off of what you were just saying, and just kind of like the military's adoption with wearables technology over the last several years. And kind of part of this is me highlighting the fact that wildland is so far behind military and warfighter human performance.
I've seen your face. I've seen your Instagram, dude. Yeah, you're all about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I try to share some examples on there, but there's so many more things that I could share. And I think the wearables alone is a good one. But I mean, I want to say real quick, even the fact that like your position exists for the Navy is so far beyond like what like the Forest Service could provide, or like the DOI, or even like some state agencies. So I think it's super cool, first and foremost, that like your position even exists and you're able to do what you do with friggin' what are they, seamen? I'm in the Army, so I don't mess around. Sailors. Yeah, who cares?
Yes. Okay,
But seriously, I think it's the kind of the main point that I wanted to bring up here was I've noticed an interesting observation over the last couple of years with different colleagues or just people that I know that work in different aspects of military human performance. And I've seen it with the Navy, I've seen it with the Air Force, I've seen it with Army's H2F program. There's kind of been this trend of almost moving away from wearables. And the arguments that I'm hearing are like, we don't need more data because we're not even using the data that we already have. And so I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but I do think it's interesting, like that military is so far behind or so far ahead of wildland that they're almost like, hey, we already did the wearables thing and now we're going back. And then wildland firefighters are like, what's wearables?
Right.
So
yeah.
It's like,
so my opinion with wearables, and again, this is in general, right? Like you can take this statement and apply it to anything, whether it's athlete or tactical athlete, military, firefighter, is you have all this data. Cool. But like, what does it actually mean in terms of your job? And I think that's where the huge disconnect is with a lot of, different areas and different agencies utilizing wearables. Is you collect all this data and it's like, wow, yeah, everybody sleeps X amount of hours. This is their HRV. This is okay. Well, okay. Did you equate it to anything? Like, did you equate it to any, like, for example, like with, the work that, Justin and I will, we can kind of go into what we're doing with Hotshot Wellness. But it's like, we're collecting data on all these firefighters right now. Great. But I need a list of like what assignments happened. Also, hey, were there any mishaps that happened on those assignments? The more data from the operational side, the performance side that like you can actually overlay with the wearable data, that's where the answer comes from. It's not, you can collect data till the cows come home and just like have this onslaught of wearable data, right? But if you're not equating it to anything, like, what does it matter? Like, same thing like with me. Like, I'm training for a mountain bike race right now, and I have all my wearable data. Okay, great, but so what? Like, am I equating my wearable data to like what I'm doing in training? And am I looking at it like concurrently? Okay, no. Well, then my wearable data is almost useless at that point. You got to be looking at it in some degree, and I think that's where I see a big disconnect with wearables personally.
Real quick, I do want to give a shout out to the Forest Service. Again, I don't know all the details because a lot of this is under the hood and this is just kind of me hearing some stuff from a credible source, but still just hearing. I do know that the Forest Service just wrapped up a 2-year study using Whoop straps and under the guise of a fatigue management study. So again, I don't even know exactly what that means. I could even see that being like, looking at like shift schedules and things like that. And trying to figure out like, are there better alternatives to kind of the way that we schedule people now and like just workload, that accumulates over the course of a fire season. So I don't know what their
Yeah,
objectives of that whole study is, but I do know that they did some cool stuff. The
that's
fact that
awesome.
they're using Whoop and collecting data is cool. I think it's
It is
cool.
really cool. That's really rad. Yeah,
Yeah. So
especially
we'll see
because you
what the
guys.
results are and what they say once it's published, but I'm excited for that.
Yeah, I'm excited too to see that. And I think it's, from a fatigue management side, manning side, like those are all great things to look at. But I think too, the big one is just showcasing and maybe providing some data and some insight as to like, hey, you guys did bust your ass for 7 months. Maybe we should go on an ultra marathon plan in the off season. Like maybe you should take the time to rest and recover because you guys are tactical athletes. Like you guys are athletes who have a 7 month season. Like you don't see NFL players go and getting after it and taking on a completely different sport in the off season. Like they're resting and recovering and getting primed for the next season to, for their health. So maybe something like that will come out of that study too.
Yeah, that's a good segue into kind of that next piece of the conversation where I think we start to add layers to how these individuals can see this as a tool that they can leverage for their decision making. I know that between our conversations, you've stated over and over and over, this is not to change tactics. It's not to change operations. This is to enable you to make better decisions for yourself, make the behavioral lifestyle changes happen. So this physiological data can start to trend in a positive direction. What does the intervention look like for you and your warfighters? And does that behavior change happen naturally? What is the missing link between a wearable and behavior change? Like has it been successful for you with your military operations to yield these positive results on your people?
We actually, we don't really assess that. It's mainly from we're we're currently building tools right now to predict performance. So we're not looking at it in terms of behavior changes. You do see it from like other guys. Uh,
Anecdotally,
yeah, I mean, like folks do pay attention more, like with their data. Like they get curious of like, why is my HRV so low? You guys partied last weekend, right? Okay, that's probably why. So it's more educational pieces like that. Like we do see and we do see some examples. Like there are a lot of people that don't care, but there are some that like really care of like, hey, what does this mean? What is my REM sleep? Why did I get less REM sleep? What does that mean? So we do get those questions from time to time, but it's not something that we're like actually like actively assessing and looking at.
I think it might be helpful too if you kind of share like the difference between this objective data that we're collecting and maybe subjective data that we just inherently feel, or that like we know what it is because we feel it, but we don't really have a name. We don't really have a name that we can put on it, or
Yeah.
a definition we can put on it. But then like how would like developing that self-awareness and that understanding can help, when you're able to see an HRV score on your Garmin or see a sleep score on your Oura Ring, and then match that with like just asking yourself, how am I feeling? How am I stressed? How am I sore, etc. So how can
Yeah.
someone kind of learn to develop that level of self-awareness?
Yeah, I take the same with my wearables. I take the same approach as like looking at your body weight on a scale. Like the whole notion with your body weight is, we tell folks like, hey, don't weigh yourself every day. It's paralysis by analysis, right? You're looking at there's so many factors that affect your body weight every day. Looking at a scale every single day is going to make you spiral. It's going to make you think. It's going to make you go through all these different like thought processes, and it's going to give you anxiety overall. But you use it for trending, right? Like every week you get a data point and you look at it over time and you're able to see trends. Same thing with your wearables. I don't get lost in the sauce when it comes to my data. You collect it, you're able to see it, and then looking at it over time and also understanding like what's going on, right? Like within like your environment. Like you're gonna like if you guys are on a Fireline for 16 days or however many days you're on it, yeah, you should expect your readiness score to decline, and that's okay. Like that's completely fine. It's actually completely normal. So don't get lost in the weeds on that. Like it's gonna happen, but you can look at the factors that are causing it that decrease. Try to find try to find like the little things, the minuscule things to improve to either mitigate a further decrement in readiness or further decrement in your sleep, and then looking at the trends over time. Looking at you can start comparing assignment to assignment. You can start comparing season to season, and then just looking at like kind of just like how worn out your body is altogether throughout the course of a season, and being able to plan your recovery for the fall, for the off season and for the following season to come. That's how I would do it. And again, that's why I love these things. It's all trend based. I don't get lost in the sauce anymore on my daily scores. It's looking at it over time and being able to check in with yourself. And also, like, a lot of these apps now have the ability for you to like log notes every day of like how you felt too. And like you can look at that over time as well. But yeah, just looking at it, using it as a trend and still going off of your feel, because the only person that knows you the best is you. And I am 100% for that. This is just a tool to help you with all of that.
Yeah, I think that's a crucial piece for people not to dive way too deep on one singular score, one singular metric, one singular day. I think, if anything, for me, the wearable technologies has had a place in the awareness piece for me, something that Austin just touched on. Just simply having a mindfulness about what you do today, how the fact that you're undergoing a performance challenge and you need to set yourself up with the right context to meet those demands. So you're thinking more about the nutrition, thinking more about the sleep, thinking more about the hydration, thinking about the psychological stress you're taking on. This is a way for you to have that, what you already know subjectively, of if you feel like you're in the tank, you get up in the morning, your whole body's feeling shot, you've got
Yeah.
this low, it's lethargic, no motivation. You know your HRV's low before your HRV says it's low. But this allows you that objectivity. I think it's just a beautiful tool to be able to kind of look outside your own view, because I've definitely done it myself, where you're driving yourself deeper and deeper and deeper in your mind, thinking like you have more. But this objectivity allows me to step aside and just say, dude, what am I doing to myself? I'm driving myself so deep in this hole right now. I objectively am just behaving stupidly by training harder, doing more, like
Yep.
rest, just
Yeah.
fucking recover.
The biggest piece I started noticing this, 'cause I travel a ton, both for my day job, and also I go to speak with Bayer Pharma. I do some hemophilia speaking engagement, and I travel a lot. And I would always try to cram my training schedule around travel. Like, it didn't matter if I was traveling. It didn't matter, if I was jet lagged like crazy. I would still try to train. And lo and behold, I would get sick every single time I would travel. And it would almost like the body just like kind of presses like a force reset. And it's just like, dude, I don't care. Like, you're going to rest whether you like it or not. I'm going to make you rest now. And you're going to get sick. And now that like my ring I listened to what the Oura Ring's telling me, and it's like, hey, you're traveling. You should take it easy, do some meditation, do some stretching, go for a walk, do not train. And lo and behold, I don't get sick. I haven't gotten sick on a traveling, and knock on wood, I'm traveling soon, but I haven't gotten sick in a long time. And it's because like I've got this thing to tell me, hey, like, slow it down, like, wind it back. Like, you're gonna be able to still continue to train when you get back, and you're actually gonna gain those healthy days back, because like body's just gonna get sick, and you're gonna get broken down, and you're gonna have like these really low quality sessions, or you're gonna be sick and not train at all.
I want to highlight a specific topic that I think gets left behind in the conversation, that based on your education, the specific unique things that Oura Ring is really great for. I want to take this next segment and talk about women's health. Why is the Oura Ring so above par, so next level, above the curve when it comes to the women's health side of things?
They really dived deep into this topic several years ago. They started, so Aura's got this cool thing on their app. If you guys, I don't, Justin, Austin, you don't have one, do you? Oura Ring yet?
No.
No. Yeah, Justin, I know you do, but have you ever seen that? You see the tab like Oura Labs that's in there on the setting, on like your settings page?
Yeah.
So it's a thing that Aura's been doing for a long time, where like you can just like, you give them permission to take all your wearable data, and they have you do like certain surveys. Like, for example, I was doing a blood pressure survey for the last year, and I was just giving them blood pressure cuff readings like every week, because we have a home one, and they're taking all of my wearable data and equating it to my blood pressure data. And lo and behold, the Gen 5 Oura Ring is able to do blood pressure sensing now. And it's because they're utilizing their participants and the people and their users as data participants. And that's the thing. I think that's what they did with the women's health side of things. So they are able to essentially take all the data that Oura produces, right? Like HRV, resting heart rate, elevated breathing rate, O2 sat, skin temperature, all of these things. And they have a separate algorithm that's able to do cycle detection for females. And from what I've heard from every female that has worn an Oura Ring, it's pretty damn accurate. I think it's almost as accurate as us guys' radar when it comes to that, right?
It's impressive.
It's pretty close to the gold standard. Oh man, my wife's gonna listen to this. She's gonna hit me. So, I mean, that's the gold standard, right? Or I think that's in their study. That's the gold standard. But
Empirically validated, the male mind.
That's the
I'm
control group.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I'm starting. Oh, really? Why? That's weird. It's not because you yelled at me for no reason last night. um.
So back to business.
Anyway, yeah. So back. Yeah.
Can you tell
So
3 guys are talking about this?
100%. I know, and none of their women are present.
We're mature, I swear.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's really good. It's incredibly accurate. And I think that's just that goes along. I don't know about the female firefighter side of the house. I don't know, like, does the female athlete triad guys, does that come into play pretty big with female wildland firefighters? Or
So that's one of the pieces of this conversation, just simply having this here, a placeholder for this space to exist, because the research is lacking. I
yeah,
cannot imagine the amount of females probably with their hands up in the air of what's specific to me do I need to do to make myself more resilient to this job that pounds me into the ground. Body weight per body weight is mechanically straining, putting me in a
yeah,
position where I'm expending stupid amounts of energy. And you're having to do it while navigating physiological demands they predispose you to basically just take shit every day for like multiple times a month. Like, dude, doing this job already is ass. Like, doing it in your menstrual phase, in your luteal phase, any one of those phases that predisposes you to shitty sleep, way less recovery, way on a low performance standpoint. Just letting that conversation be known that this isn't just like a psychological shift. This is a physiological downshift in your performance that you have to accommodate. That's
yeah.
fucking gnarly.
Yeah, well, that's like coaches, like now professional coaches are training their female athletes based off their cycles. Like, there's so many coaches out there now that are like advocating for, yeah, like my female athlete has like 1 to 2 good weeks maximum of like good weeks where we can redline and like really push hard. And then you have to adjust training load accordingly. And you look at a female wildland firefighter, I'm like, they're athletes. I don't know how many athletes that are carrying half their body weight up a hill for hours and hours and hours a day, right? And I think that's such a cool area to study. And I'm really excited, Justin, for us to like start digging into that with the Type 1 Readiness Program.
Yeah, absolutely. And we could definitely dive into the program.
Yeah.
Try the Type 1 Readiness Program soon. But I think there's one last piece that I think we get our mindset on these wearables stuck in the mode of we can't control the Fireline, so these wearables have no place. But what about the other 6 months of the year? How
Exactly.
much of an advantage can this be in your off season when you now have control over training intensity, volumes, duration, when you recover, how you recover, unless you're working 40 hours a week again and just full timer. But nonetheless, let's shift gears into what the off season could look like. This could be a little bit more of that performance mindset, broadly speaking, go to collegiate athletes, professional athletes, all that. Like, how do these wearables affect training in the off season? What can set you up for success there?
I think the biggest one, and it's going to get a little deep actually, is going to be just like really understanding, man, like what your home life is like, right? I mean, like we can train hard and try to eat good and all that till the cows come home. Like if your home life, if something's going on in your home life, like that's going to affect your training. That's going to affect your overall health and well-being. I think having these wearables as a way to track your lifestyle at home, like I think that's going to be a huge deal. Again, alcohol consumption, stress is going on in your family, all of that, like those things matter. Some things you can control, like you can control how much alcohol you consume. So you can control that, but sometimes you can't control what's going on in your marital life or with your kids or your family. But the wearable can help you stay mindful of things like that and being like, hey, I got to take care of me and I got to take care of things that are happening with me. Maybe, again, I don't need to hop on this intense ass training plan as soon as the off season starts. Like maybe I can use this. The wearable is going to be able to tell you, hey, you've been in the doghouse for months and months and months and months and months. Let's take the first month of just like, hey, how about we just go play, go do some winter sports and just go have fun. Just let's not follow anything at all. And let's just get back to baseline. And then as the off season starts to, come to a close and you guys start ramping up for your season, I'm assuming most IHCs, right? Like you guys have like a ramp up protocol, most of them, right? To get ready for in season, or is that where Rugged Athlete come in?
where hopefully Rugged Athlete starts to come in more often. But every crew's probably got some subjective marker of a preseason test you got to hit, something that
Yeah.
guys and girls are gearing up for. So there's probably a relative idea of this is the standard, meet the standard by day one. So there's not really a regimen or a specific ramp up. I imagine there's little crews that periodize that ramp up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say
Okay.
we
Well,
definitely
yeah.
like that is what we do. And some of the ways that we have used wearables or just even just I'll throw subjective data in there as well. But some ways we've used these tools with some of the firefighters we've coached and worked with is especially for running and especially during more of the off season, the winter, where we're getting someone kind of new to the program. I like to bias a lot more of my intensity prescription based on heart rate. And I've found this to be successful for a couple of reasons. One is it gets people to slow down when they're trying to build up their aerobic pace and focus on more low intensity. And can't tell you how many times people are like, dude, I had to walk on this run because like the heart rate you're telling me to stay at was so low. And I was like, yeah, it's because your aerobic base is like non-existent. So
Yeah.
that's okay. Like that's not crazy or abnormal, but we want to get you to be a little bit more efficient in that zone too, which is why we're doing this in freaking November or something. But the second reason I've found it to be successful is because it gets people to actually understand what their heart rate is just in general, like to actually feel what it feels like to be at a lower intensity heart rate and to really feel what it feels like when you're at that zone 5 doing threshold runs type of heart rate. And that way, once we get into more of a preseason training block, or even when you're actually back with your crew for the season and going on crew hikes and stuff like that, I want to take all that information that you just gathered through training and all that self-awareness that you just gained through tracking your heart rate and tracking intensity based on that. So that when you're on your crew hike and you're like, oh man, I feel like I'm about to redline, you don't even need to have your watch on you or
You just know.
or have to have objective numbers. Like you just know where you're at, and you know how to pace yourself a little bit better. And you just because you have that self-awareness and you just know. Yeah, you know what your heart rate is, you know how it's responding, you know how long it takes for that heart rate to come back down. So if you need to pace yourself or if you need to pause for whatever reason, like I think that kind of stuff is super valuable, but you can't learn that unless you actually pay attention to it and track it. So that's something we definitely try to do with a lot of people we work with.
Good. Yeah. And that's definitely the value, right? And then just being able to pay attention to your body, periodize correctly, and then come into the season fresh and ready to go. I think that's where the value really comes in. Yeah.
So building beyond that, kind of want to just dive into a little bit more of the end of this conversation where we set firefighters up for the best success possible. If they have a wearable or if they're thinking about getting a wearable, what are some common mistakes from the purchase of the wearable all the way to the application of utilizing the wearable? What are some of the main mistakes people typically kind of fall into in your experience when they first get into these wearables?
Yeah, I think is just finding the one that you're going to want to wear the most, because wearing it as much as possible is the significant predictor of success when utilizing these things. The same thing with everything, right? Consistency is key. So finding a form factor that you love and that is most comfortable and conducive to your environment is going to be the best one, hands down. I'm not a watch person. I don't need to see the time on my wrist. I just don't. I don't like a lot of things on my wrist. So the ring, this fits me. Like, this is great. I barely notice it. I especially don't like wearing watches when I sleep. Again, I don't really notice this. The form factor is small. I enjoy it. There's that. Some people don't like wearing rings when they work out, but you want something that tracks your activity. All right, well, then a watch-based wearable is probably going to be your go-to. So I think just like trying to find something that you love and are going to wear it all the time, that 100%. I think that's the biggest thing that you can look at.
And we've already kind of covered a couple of the other mistakes. I think just to repeat, the single numbers over trends, I feel like is the biggest pitfall. And just not falling into the mistake of letting these become kind of a dictatorship over the decisions you make. And
don't get lost in the sauce.
Intervene. Yeah, exactly. I think those are probably like the biggest two.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's shift gears. Final topic that I can think
quick,
of.
just to add on to that. I do think, and this kind of depends on the individual and maybe some of their background and their life experiences. I don't know. But I know that there are some people that they'll literally get like increased anxiety when they see their score in red or like yeah, it's just a low number. And it's like just seeing the red or seeing the low number just makes it even lower, makes it more red.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so I do think there is like, yeah, like it's important to understand like you can't let a number dictate more than it's really there for
Yeah.
because
Exactly.
you're
You
just
can't.
digging yourself into a deeper hole.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't get lost in it. I was one of those people. I used to, it would honestly be a reason why I just wouldn't wear my wearable. There would be times, guys, where like it'd be a late night. I'd either be like with my folks, with my wife's folks late at night. And I knew I had a ride in the next morning. Like I had to train because it was my day to train. And I would take my Oura Ring off and I would set it to the side because I did not want to open that app up in the morning and see that score because I knew it was going to mentally affect my ride. I stopped getting into that habit. I'm just like, you know what? It's data. I need to look at it. I need to see it. And once I did that, I stopped learning, or not, so I stopped making it dictate how I felt the next day. It was just a learning point, and you kind of create a healthy relationship with your wearable, for lack of a better term.
This conversation goes hand in hand with a certain project that Brandon's the program manager for in the Type 1 Readiness Project. Brandon, can you give us a brief overview of what that project looks like?
Yeah. Yeah. So we had some wonderful folks at Aura. They donated some leftover Gen 3 Oura Rings to us, and we were able to hand them out to several IHCs. I think we had a couple Helitack too, right, Justin? A couple Helitack folks.
Yeah, I think there's
Yeah.
2 or 3 people from different Helitack crews, but
Yep.
mainly IHCs.
Mainly IHCs. Yep. They're able to hand these rings out to several folks out here in the local San Diego and California. And we've been monitoring them for almost a year now. Of just getting their wearable data pushed in and being able to like start looking at trends. Obviously seeing, and we've been monitoring them for, again, over a year. But I think the most exciting thing that we've done is Justin and I have been able to travel to a couple of these IH and just being able to give lectures, kind of like what we're doing here on this podcast, of just like giving folks the rundown on, hey, what are these wearables? Hey, do you guys have any questions? Like, what is the data? I love, we got in the question every time of like, what's HRV? And being able to explain what HRV is to these guys and girls, and being able to educate them on what these wearables are and how they can use it in their personal time. Just given the way the government world works, contract world work, we're years away from making this remotely something of doctrine with wild and fire. But the thing that we can do in the short term is educate as many wild and firefighters on how to utilize these wearables for their own personal health, both physical and mental well-being. And that's the goal of this project. Our goal for next year is to expand it to more crews, to get more rings on more folks, or different wearables. Like, it doesn't have to be Aura. It can be anything. Ideally, we would love to educate people in general on wearables because a lot of people have their own. A lot of folks have Garmin. A lot of folks have Apple Watches. Just being able to educate everybody on all of these different wearables and how they can utilize them. Like, that's the mission of this program, and so excited to be a part of it.
We'll say I think the opportunity, yeah, we're talking about doctrine and stuff. We don't need to go on a friggin' rabbit hole with that, but I do think there's a window of opportunity with the GPS side of it and pairing it with, I mean, just GPS and more from personnel tracking standpoint, just to like have accountability of your crew and of your individuals that you're over, which I know that's been something that's been talked about forever, as far back as Yarnell Hill incident, or maybe even further than that. So there is a big, I mean, that's a big point of contention of like just tracking people and knowing where people are and just having some sort of GPS device on every single firefighter that's out on the fire line. But yeah, adding the whole physiological side to that is just adding way more to that. And then you run into, I mean, just the reality of the job. And it's like, you're out there sometimes spiked out for 2 straight weeks. So like, what's the battery life we're talking about? Like these are things that are, unfortunately such a huge part of the conversation. And it's like, well, if the battery life is not even 24 hours, well, not usable, like doesn't fit.
Exactly.
So
yeah. They're getting way better. They're getting way better. I mean, a Whoop now has I think a 14-day battery life on it now. And they also come with a charger that like literally just slides onto the band, and
Mhm.
it just
Yeah.
sits there for an hour and it goes. I know Aura, I think the Gen 5 now has an 8 or a 9-day battery life or something like that, when it's fully optimized, but it's decent. It's these devices that have like the whole phone interface where they last 24 hours to 48 hours. But like you get a decent wearable that's like in the realm of human performance tracking to some degree, whether that's Aura, Whoop, Fitbit, Garmin. These guys are lasting a pretty decent time. But yeah, battery life is huge, especially out in the field, because you need them to last. And they gotta be strong enough to last too. I mean, the job's not easy. It's not sitting at a desk every day.
Mhm.
One thing I think that's really important to highlight really kind of stems from the name of the project itself, Type 1 Readiness. I think we get these wearable technologies on our wrists or our finger, and we almost, what I see in front of me is like watching somebody playing a video game with their health, which, if that gets you to do it, cool, it's fun, it's engaging. But this project isn't to get you a better sleep score. It's not to get you a higher HRV. The goal doesn't end there. It's about making you more resilient to the job. That's what the Type 1 readiness really comes from. It's not so you can fuck around and show your friends how healthy you are. It's so that you can do the job better, do it with more resilience, do it year in, year out without taking as much damage, or getting to a point where you just need to take significant amounts of steps back just to get back to a baseline. Understanding the
Exactly.
concept of readiness, where you're at, having some kind of an objective way to have that knowledge for yourself, just so you can do the shit you want to do. So you don't have to take as much time off, have to be burned out, have to come back from such a large deficit that you put yourself through. So just want to make that distinction. This isn't for us just to be nerds, and just because we enjoy talking about health doesn't mean that's where we think the end state is. The end state is on effectiveness on the job.
Exactly. Again, yeah, we have this data, right? So what? What is it affecting, right? And the ultimate thing is creating more resilient wildland firefighters.
To me, is the power of the wearable, y'all. That's all.
Yep.
That's all I have. If you or Austin or Brandon have anything else that you think we left out, but I think that covered all the bases for me on what we think people should know about wearables and how to utilize them and what's the advantages, what the field could look like with them. And hopefully we have more data to present on the next podcast with the Type 1 Readiness Project data we're collecting
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah, that was absolutely.
Like,
Yeah, I got nothing. Awesome.
my hope is that someone listening to this will they already have a Garmin or they already have like an Apple Watch or something that they wear, and they're like, I didn't even know my watch could do all these things. And then they actually they pull up
Same.
the app on their phone, and they actually look at their HRV, or they actually look at their resting heart rate, or start to actually play around with what does my Garmin training readiness mean, and how does this relate to how I actually feel, or how sore I am, or how tired I am, and just start to play around with that stuff, because it really is one of those things that the more you just pay attention to it, and the more you're just aware of the trends, like you said. I think that's such a huge point that I think it's worth repeating, is just looking at the trends and not just
Yep.
taking one day or one number in isolation and either freaking out or thinking you're totally good, you're covered. But seeing what has looked like over the last week or 4 weeks or something is super, super important. So
Yep.
yeah, I hope this was a helpful conversation where people can start to look into that stuff and just pay attention, because I think that's the most important thing. If you're going to get any value, it's from just checking it out throughout the day
Yeah.
and just seeing what it is.
Yeah. Just get curious, right? Just get curious to what these metrics are. A lot of these apps, they have like little info tabs too, where you can oh, what is HRV? And Garmin or Aura, it'll be a tab that educate you and tell you about what all those things are. And also just make sure that you're always thinking about context too. Again, it helps you with this whole analysis, paralysis by analysis bit. Understand oh, well, my readiness is so low. Okay, well, again, man, you're on the Fireline for 10 days. That's chill. You're good. It's use it for context specific things, and yeah, just be a student and treat yourself like your own little research study, and just it's a really great world to go dive into and geek out.
Yeah. Well, man, appreciate you coming on.
Yeah,
Been looking forward to this
appreciate being on.
conversation for a while. So
Me too, guys. Yeah.
now I know what wearables are. Thank you.
Yeah, right. No problem, man. No problem, Austin. Yeah, I've been looking forward to this for forever. It's ever since the podcast got started. I was texting both of you, going all right, when are we doing a wearable talk? So yeah, I'm really excited.
Thanks for your time, Brandon. Appreciate the
Yeah.
expertise. Hopefully you all listening enjoyed it.